I mean, it on many levels was cartoonish yesterday, and there's so many destructive forces within the Republican Party. And I understand how you could say, Joe, that this is decades in the making. At the same time, to a point you were making yesterday, for Kevin McCarthy himself, in terms of basic negotiation, wasn't this preventable?
Well, it should have been. I mean,
it should have been.
He had a month to do the deals. And when I say Nancy Pelosi would have never taken this to the floor, if Nancy Pelosi had known that she didn't have the votes, she would have had a press conference a week before and announced that she was stepping away. But what Nancy Pelosi would have done is, as somebody told me last night, she would have found 5 great Codels for 5 Democratic members who were going to vote against her to go on, and an assurance that when they came back, they were going to have more influence in the House than ever before. She would have done what was necessary to get the votes, or she wouldn't have had her name on the ballot. This is what's so, for me, and I think for Nancy Pelosi and for other people who actually know how to do this sort of stuff, what's so confounding? You take a vote where you don't know the outcome of the vote on the House floor, that you just, I'm sorry, that's not even a rookie mistake. That's just Bush League. And you wonder how a guy is in Congress that long where he doesn't know the outcome of this thing. You don't wing it. You don't wing it when the whole world's watching and your career is on the line. But that's exactly what happened yesterday. Willie, it's interesting hearing Michael Beschloss talk about the Republican Party, that it was actually once seen as the party that knew how to get things done. I'm reminded of the Simpsons episode where they went to the Democratic and the Republican conventions, and I think the Republicans unhurled a huge banner that said, "We don't like people." And then they went to the Democratic Party that unhurled a banner that said, "We can't govern." And that applies, of course, to this Republican Party now. We can't govern. Again, this is just a follow-up to a disastrous 2022. This is only happening because Republicans screwed up the midterms so horribly. They should have won by 30, 40, 50 seats. They should have won the Senate. They should have had that red wave that all their Republican pollsters were predicting, but they didn't. And now they compound the problem by looking like complete fools in front of the entire world. And those swing voters out there that are looking at this, they're going, okay, yeah, it's a good thing I didn't vote for Republicans, because they don't know how to govern.
And it raises the obvious question: if they can't vote to elect a House Speaker, what's it going to look like when everything else comes up before this Congress? All the business of the debt ceiling and balanced budgets and all of those kind of things, Claire. And these are the people, this group of people holding up the vote right now, Republicans. These are the insurrectionists. Andy Biggs, an honorary member of the Cyber Ninjas in Arizona. Ralph Norman called for martial law around the election. These are the people now pulling the strings of the party. And as many people have noted, Kevin McCarthy earned this moment by courting them so closely. And this is what he's left with.
Yeah, some of the people who voted against him yesterday, he spent big money in their races electing them. The 10% that are standing against Kevin McCarthy are the same 10% that cost him seats. So they're denying him the speakership in 2 ways. One, they blew a bunch of elections because of these yahoos. And now these same yahoos are making the Republican Party look like a joke. And I think it's important to remember what unites political parties: principled leadership and policies they believe in. And the problem with the modern day Republican Party is they have no policies they unite around. All they want to do is be against the other guy. On the Democratic side, it's lower health care costs, more gun safety, reproductive freedom, protecting our democracy. You can easily tick off the things that unite the Democratic Party. The only thing that held the Republican Party together with chewing gum and baling wire was that narcissist down in some sand trap in Florida. It was Donald Trump. And he didn't have principled leadership. And clearly Kevin McCarthy doesn't have principled leadership. So this is not going to have a safe landing for the Republican Party unless and until they reunite around policies that the American people can sign off on.
Yeah, Kevin McCarthy and a number of Republicans along the way, and Nancy Pelosi touched on this, lost his moral compass. Did he need the midterms truly to understand that people prefer their democracy intact? Did they need the midterms to understand that people don't like insurrections? And crawling back to Donald Trump, I mean, this man did not know the line. He did not know his value, if I may. And Jackie Alemany, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the Democratic response in the room yesterday, and then what is on tap today? What can the House Republicans do next?
Yeah, Mika, I want to get to that, but I just have to say, I think even if Kevin McCarthy had found his conscience, this set group of members would never support him. And I think it speaks to sort of the broader issue that's facing Congress today and sort of the perverted incentives for these members to be obstructionists, to be Kevin McCarthy. You had Andy Biggs sending out fundraising emails amid all of this drama yesterday, saying that he was proud to block Kevin McCarthy and was going to bring conservative power back to Washington, D.C. I'd love to see the fundraising numbers for Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, all of these people who are profiting in some way politically on social media with their own personal following and own personal brand that they've created from holding up, legislating, becoming actual members in this Congress. As for today and for the Democratic response, it was actually quite remarkable to watch former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who is now just a regular Congresswoman, glad-handing on the floor of the House with Democratic colleagues. The difference between McCarthy and Pelosi and their demeanor couldn't have been more stark and different. Pelosi was all smiles, socializing with Democratic members, and Democrats were just there to witness the show. There is no way at all Democrats are going to get involved here. I know it's something that, moderates and even McCarthy have potentially been tossing around, that maybe they're going to ultimately bring in some Democratic support, but Democrats are here to watch Republicans essentially implode. As for today, I think we're going to see what we saw yesterday, a few more iterations of these votes, and we might see the vote count against McCarthy actually brought in. But that being said, the write-in candidate, House member Jim Jordan of Ohio, does not want this job. He said so repeatedly. You're not going to see him fold. You're not going to see the moderates that he would need their support in order to actually become the Speaker fold. So it's going to be a bit of a mess. But at the same time, we also heard last night that some members of leadership were going to socialize some of the negotiations with the broader conference. So we'll see if McCarthy can come to the table today at noon when lawmakers get here with some sort of new agreement with these House Freedom Caucus members.
So, Michael Beschloss, whenever we use the phrase, this hasn't happened in 100 years, we think of you because of your chosen profession, not because of your age. So please, put us, what was the chaos we saw yesterday, the chaos we're almost certainly going to see today. Please do put it into some historical context for us.
Well, this is the question I'd ask, and I would have asked it if I were around in 1855 or 1923, which thankfully I wasn't in either case when, these speakers' races went on to many, many ballots, although not with the eye of television or modern coverage. But here's the question I'd ask all of our friends who are watching this morning. You saw what happened yesterday. The House has huge responsibility for the future and health of your families, your economic health. If there's, God forbid, a terrorist crisis, would you feel good about your family's lives being in the hands of the leadership that you saw yesterday? You mentioned Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the one who was pushing Joe McCarthy. I'm really operating in history, pushing Kevin McCarthy, and was asked by our friend Garrett Haake yesterday, are you still for McCarthy? And Trump says, well, we'll see what happens. Trump is always there when he needs you, but maybe not otherwise. Like Titanic is going down. What are you going to do, Mr. Trump? Well, we'll see what happens. And the serious thing above all of this is something I think we've really got to focus on. Yesterday, the new Republican majority in the House took out magnetometers, reduced security in the Capitol. Why is that? We are 2 days before the anniversary of January 6th, 2 years ago. There have been shootings in the House chamber in the past, with reduced security. Why is this happening so soon after we had an insurrection that almost cost us our democracy?